Television for the Home. Popular Mechanics Magazine, April 1928. Groups of people sitting in various homes at Schenectady, New York a few weeks ago saw the performers in a distant broadcasting studio flit across a tiny screen, and from the loudspeaker of a radio set heard them talk. Television, a laboratory plaything that has interested scientists for several years, had arrived. A large square cabinet, built somewhat like the bigger talking machine models, is the first home receiver for radio-transmitted images. The dials of a receiver protrude from its middle, and above them, at the eye level of the seated spectator, appears a 3-inch square window, behind which is the screen on which the images are formed. The one great problem that has perplexed television experimenters for years, how to synchronize the transmitter and the receiver, was solved by simply ignoring it. Instead of all the elaborate and very expensive equipment necessary to keep the whirling disc of pinholes that paints the image on the receiver screen in absolute step with the corresponding mechanism that transmits the original image, the television receiver for home use has a simple rheostat control on the end of an extension cord that permits the spectator to do the synchronizing himself. If the receiving motor runs a trifle fast or a bit too slow, the picture will begin to get out of focus, to slip off the screen. The effect is much like that at the movie theater, when the frames of the moving film and the shutter do not work in unison, and you see the bottom half of one frame and the top half of another on the screen. The operator makes a simple adjustment to the projector, and the picture is restored to position. And in the same way, a slowing down or speeding up of the television receiver motor brings the picture back into place. It is as simple, explains Dr. E.F.W. Alexanderson of the General Electric Laboratories, who developed the machine, as learning to drive an automobile. David Sarnoff, Vice President and General Manager of the Radio Corporation of America, predicts that within 5 years, television will be an art and an industry in this country. Here is how the first practical demonstration in the home worked. In the studio, the performer stands before an ordinary arc light. Between him and the light is a large disc, revolving 18 times a second. And in the disc are 48 holes, arranged in a spiral, so that in each revolution, successive beams of light are swept across each part of the performer's face. A photoelectric cell is directed toward the performer, and as each light beam is reflected back from his face, it affects the cell, which converts the light into electrical energy. From there on, the transmission system differs in no important respect from the usual broadcasting outfit. The tiny current wave in the photocell is magnified and amplified into a powerful signal, which is then dispatched into the air through the antenna on a wavelength of 37.8 meters. The antenna is a new type, the wires arranged in a checkerboard square, each wire being half a wavelength long, and so coupled that they are always in phase, eliminating the necessity of antenna tuning. The WGY transmitter on its usual wavelength of 379.5 meters was used for the accompanying voice transmission. In the home, there are 2 receivers, one to pick up the voice on one wavelength and deliver it, amplified in volume, to the loudspeaker. The other, operating on a different wavelength, receives and amplifies the electrical signals produced by the image. Instead of being connected to a loudspeaker, the output of this receiver goes to a small cold light, a neon gas-filled bulb, which is so sensitive that it can be turned on and off 1,000,000 times a second if necessary, with no lingering afterglow, and which has the peculiar property of producing its glow on one side of a target-like electrode only. In front of the neon globe, a duplicate of the pinhole disc at the broadcasting station is revolving 18 times a second, kept in step by the control in the spectator's hands. As its 48 apertures sweep in turn across in front of the light, they pass the pulsating light beams, now rising in brilliancy for a highlight, and then fading off for a shadow. The disc is 24 inches in diameter, and the 48 holes each 35 millimeters across. The distance between the outer and inner holes of the spiral is calculated to make an image only 1.5 inches square. But between the disc and the spectator's window is a magnifying lens that doubles the picture each way, bringing it up to 3 inches square. The rate of revolution of the disc, 18 times per second, produces a corresponding number of images, or 2 more per second than are seen when movie film is operated at standard speed. The Moore neon lamp, invented by D. McFarland Moore, an engineer of the Edison Lamp Works of the General Electric Company, gives the picture a distinct pink cast, one of the characteristics of neon which is seen in the new type of signs now in use. In the demonstration at Schenectady, performers in the studio talked, moved about, lit and smoked cigarettes, exhibited their bobs and permanent waves, and performed other stunts. As all the apparatus as yet built has such small receiving screens, no attempt has been made to transmit an entire studio scene, an orchestra playing, or even a full-length portrait of a moving person. One of the interesting things about the television demonstration is that when the broadcasting of images becomes a regular feature, anyone will be able to build receivers, for none of the principal features will be covered by basic patents. The revolving disc, the neon lamp, and the photoelectric cell are all old inventions. There are patents, of course, on the improved features of late models, but the basic ideas involved all date back before the days when radio pictures were thought of.